Good day, everyone. My name is John Megling, and today we're going to be talking about Azure Active Directory Domain Services, how to install and configure that. So we start by going to the Azure portal, logging in, portal.azure.com. Once we're in the portal, we're going to look at creating a new resource. And we can simply hit new and then type in what we're looking for, or in this case we can go to the security and identity tab and take a look at that too, but I'm going to go ahead and just type in what I'm after to do here, which is Azure Directory Domain Services. And you'll see we'll search for that and we'll get a list. It's the first item on the list. We want to go ahead and click into that. And we'll go ahead and hit the create button. And then we're presented with a wizard with some settings to walk through here. The very first thing we're not going to touch, that's our original onmicrosoft.com account. What we want to do, put in our domain, our DNS name for our domain name. In my case, it's the fcmerc.com. Pick which subscription we want it to go against. I'm going to go ahead and create a new resource group for this. You could add it to an existing, but I would suggest go ahead and, should be one of the first things you do, so go ahead and create that new resource group. And make sure your region's correct. Then the network, this is real important. Your virtual machines that you're going to connect to this domain service need to be on the same virtual network. So we'll go ahead and create a new virtual network for this resource. With that address space, again, you can change this name here if you want, and there's our subnet. We'll go ahead and check our subnet. Just to make sure it's what we want. This is our administrators group. This is very important when it comes to Azure Domain Services. We want to go in here and make sure we add a couple our users that are going to administer this new domain that we're creating. I'm going to go ahead and add a few accounts here. And you can see that's done. Just takes a few seconds there. We'll go ahead and OK and move to the next part. Again, this is a roll-up screen. We'll go ahead and click OK and let that go ahead and start creating. So you'll see our deployments initializing. It will take about an hour for this to provision. So while that's working, we'll go ahead and take a look. We can actually go ahead and take a look at what's happening here. You see I'm searching just for domain services. And you can see it pops right up there. We can go ahead and click into that. There's our resource and our resource group that we created. Go ahead and drill down into that, take a look. And as you can see, it's in the it's being created, it's in the deploying piece. So there's nothing we can really do right now, but with the miracle of editing, hopefully I can get us past this time. Yep, you can see we're again, that's going to take about an hour, and that's done. We still have a deploying status, then that's typical. I've done this quite a few times, and it will take a few minutes to clear that, but we can just pop around in here and look at some of these items that we have in our new Active Directory domain that we've created. The thing to remember too is we still have a links, connections to Azure Active Directory, so we want to go ahead and add that domain that we just created to our custom domain names in our tenant. And this is what we're doing here. Go ahead and we'll type in that domain and add it. And these are things we're going to need to do to our domain register. In my case, it's GoDaddy. These are the things, the text record that we need to add to our domain name with our hoster. Again, in my case, it's GoDaddy. I'm going to go ahead and edit that. Pretty easy thing to do. It's a very common process you'd want to get with your provider if you know, and specifically how to do that. But we'll just copy and paste these values into here. Again, nothing too crazy. We just want to make sure we get these settings correct. That way our domain can be verified in Azure. Go ahead and save that record. And then you just want to verify that it's been created. You know, check your records. There was mine at the bottom there. Just checking all the records to make sure it's all good here. Again, the process from your hosting, your provider may be different, but it's going to be the same kind of things. We'll go ahead and verify that. And that's what we want to see. Our domain is verified. We can see that it's verified there, and there's our settings for the domain. And now it's in our Azure Active Directory. So even though we're doing domain services, which is different than traditional Azure Active Directory, the two are connected together. So we're still going to have both. You can see that we're validated there, and we can make it primary if we need to, which is be the case for most customers. In my case, I've got quite a few domains, so I'm not going to make that one the primary in this case. But then we can drill down into our domain services again. Everything should be good to go by now. Start taking a look. Notice, yep, that the deployment phase is over and we're running, which is a good thing. Then there are some other things we need to do. Some initial setup here. You can see our DNS server settings. We're going to need to do a few things there just to validate that and get that set up. I'm going to configure that in just a second. We're going to go ahead and copy one of those IP addresses and make it a little easier for us. And then this is simply, you know, we'll go custom here and we'll actually type in, we'll copy and paste our IP addresses for the DNS servers that Microsoft provided for us. I'll go ahead and save that. And we can see that's good, but we definitely want to double check that. And then there is some other steps to do related to users. We can click into that. Microsoft provides some guidance on how to handle that. I'm not going to show that in today's. Again, they give you step-by-step guidance for that. You can just hit this links, whether it's all you know, accounts created in Azure Active Directory or whether you have a hybrid environment. So after that's done, that's pretty much the setup related to the piece in Azure. Again, we want to check those settings. You can see that's our resource group that we created. We're going to drill down into our virtual network and check those DNS server settings and make sure that's all good. Yep, there's our custom settings that we created just a minute ago. And then we shall take a look at some of the tabs here, some of the settings and properties, access control, activity log, anything that's going on there. You can see we did have one little bit of activity there. We can click on that and get you know, some information regarding that activity. Who has control to manage the piece in Azure, the domain services piece in Azure. Then we look at properties. This is important because this is where you get to the AAD administrators group. If you want to add additional, you know, people or make changes there, this is where you would need to go to do that. Again, you can click into that, and we get quite a few options here. We can look at the members that we already have. See the two that we added in setup. And then I'm going to go ahead and create an owner here. We'll add some owners of the actual resource. Again, pretty easy wizards to do most of the stuff. Again, be careful here and just add who you need. You want to limit that. And any group memberships, if we want to create those, we can do in here. I don't have any group memberships. Just tab through some of these things so you can kind of see some of the things you can do related to this group. Really not much else you really need to do in here other than make sure you've got an account to administer. If we want to do the secure LDAP, that's where we would set that up. And that's about it as far as those options go. So now what we want to do is we've got our domain. We want to go ahead and create a resource, in this case a Windows server. Hopefully you're familiar with this screen. If not, basically we're creating a new virtual machine which we will then join to that domain that we just created. So we want to give that machine a name. Again, this is standard stuff related to virtual machine creation, what disk type you want, username and password to log into the machine once it's created. And we're going to go ahead and use that existing resource group that we have. That way we pull up our networking settings, which is real important. We need this virtual machine to be on the same virtual network that we created when we created the domain resource. Create our what type of machine. We're just going to pick a really light load for demonstration purposes here. And once the wizard's complete here, you'll notice it'll pre-populate our network. So it's picking the network that we created when we created the domain resource, which is important. It makes sure that our virtual machine is on the same subnet. And we should be good to go. Go ahead and hit OK there. And this is a standard roll-up screen. We'll go ahead and create that resource. That will take a few minutes to create. Once that's done, we'll jump ahead here. Go ahead and take a look at that virtual machine and connect to it. And if you've done this before, sorry to bore you with this, but if not, basically you're going to use that login that you created to connect to your virtual machine. We'll let that boot. It's booting for the first time, so it will take just a little bit here. We'll go ahead and check our IP address settings just to make sure everything went the way we wanted. Our machine's on the same subnet as the domain service that we created. So we'll do that. We'll just hit the command prompt here and do a simple IP configuration command to see what our settings are. And notice that our domain, our DNS servers are right, and our IP address for this machine is in that same range. So we're off to a good start. The next thing we're going to need to do is, again, a pretty basic task of actually going in and adding this machine to that domain. So we'll go to the server manager, the local server here, and we'll hit our workgroup piece and change that. To go ahead and join the domain. Again, this is something you've probably done a lot. If not, you simply just change it to domain and type in our domain. In this case, our fcmerc.com. And we use the credentials of one of those users in that AADD piece that we put in there. And voila, we have joined the domain, and we don't have any virtual machines running as domain controllers. Again, we're using the service. restart the machine like any other machine that would need to be when it comes back up. Just want to show this, that next thing we want to look at is administrating. So we want to set up the some administrative tools in this server so we can administer this domain. And this just shows you some of the things you can do related to administering. It is a little different than a traditional domain controller and what you can and cannot do. So just want to show you these things, just a few things. This is the section of what you can't do. Primarily, this is a great way to not have virtual machines or domain controllers and turn in your domain controllers into a service within Azure. Get rid of that. And we'll look at next at adding these administrative tools into the server so that we can take a look at what we can do to administer this domain. Back into Server Manager, we'll hit the local server and we'll hit add roles and features. Pretty standard stuff again. We're going to go to the features piece. And then when we drill down into the remote server admin tools, which hopefully you're familiar with. If not, you're going to get a quick look at this. And we really just need the Active Directory domain, services piece here. Go ahead and install that. And this will just take a minute or so. And we just want to check that that was complete. We can do that by looking at our information piece up here. Yep, and we're complete. Then we want to take a look at those tools that were installed. If we notice under administrative tools, we have quite a few new options here that show up for us on our toolbar related to managing the domain and the servers and things like that. So we can go ahead and drill down to the very first one, which says here, the Active Directory Admin Center. This may be new to some of you. I don't necessarily use this a lot. I kind of use the traditional tools or use PowerShell, which you have the ability to use PowerShell. If you're into PowerShell, again, I'm showing the graphical options, but you can see we can drill down into the domain here, see the users, see the computers, which domain controllers, things like that. So there's quite a bit we can take a look at here. The other thing to remember is our user base will need to be populated into Azure Active Directory, which is again linked to Azure Domain Directory Services. So they are linked, but they are different things and they provide different services. Instead of our customers having to put traditional domain controllers in, we can use the service, which saves them compute power, saves money, and a service is easier to manage. Microsoft manages that for us. And you can use the traditional tools also. We can see the same thing, traditional tool that I use quite a bit to look at our users, things like that. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and you can see the power of the service of Active Directory domain services and the things you can do with it. Thanks and have a nice day.